Welcome back to Maryland Today. Joining me this morning is Deanna Booker. She's a financial expert and spokesperson and manager of community outreach and communications at Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. Deanna, I feel like your title gets longer every time I see you.
It does. I do it on purpose.
You do it on purpose? Are you just trying to mess with me? Is that what this is? Today, I figure we can sit down and talk a little bit about finance for couples. You know, they say love conquers all, but when it comes to money, maybe not so much.
Not so much.
Money management, a major source of conflict in relationships. In fact,
Right.
I read that it's often listed as a contributing factor when people get divorced. So how can couples avoid situations like that?
Well, I think the best way to prevent that kind of discord, that kind of disharmony around finance is to talk about it openly, talk with each other about money. And the thing of it is, it's good, and you got to start having these talks before you ever get married or before you ever move in. And then you want to be able to continue those kinds of conversations throughout the relationship.
Now, with that said, you know, talking about money together is sometimes easier said than done. In fact, I just read a recent National Foundation for Credit Counseling Service, a study of nearly 70% of those soon-to-marry adults who were surveyed said they have negative feelings about discussing money with their fiancés. 20% said they worry this type of discussion would lead to a fight, maybe reveal an unknown financial issue, or even end their engagement, which I think is crazy. Why do you think we sometimes fear talking about money with those we love?
And all of that is so true, and it's sad. It really is. And I think it just comes down to our own experience. We each have our own unique view kind of what money represents for us. It's about success or power or love or happiness. So it's about how we look at it. And money is also a very private topic. So we're uncomfortable sometimes discussing it, you know, with each other, with other people. And if we don't have that frame of reference, if your parents never talked openly about family finances, you might not even know how. You know, to discuss it. If you grew up in a house where folks fought over money, it might generate some sort of feeling of fear for you. So I think there are a lot of reasons why folks really can't handle it too well sometimes.
Well, despite these obstacles, why do couples who are serious about each other need to share their views on money management with each other?
I think we have to understand each other. You've got to understand your partner's view on money because it's going to play a fundamental role in each of your lives, you know, and your life as a couple. If you're going to decide to be together, money decisions are going to have to be made on a daily basis, and those decisions are going to affect both partners. So it's important, I think, for them to be on the same kind of financial page from the start.
Well, that makes sense. So why don't we start here by taking a look at some of the things couples need to discuss before they say, I do. What is the first thing that you'd recommend they talk about?
Well, I think, and this might sound a little weird, but I think the best place to start is with your family history. Again, because many of us inherit our money management views from our parents, from our families. So again, if your parents had to scrimp and save in order to get by, or if they had to file bankruptcy, that kind of thing, that sort of stuff affected you and the way that you view money. So talk about how money was handled in your house. Try to pinpoint, you know, how it impacted you, how it influenced you. And then consider how the two of you as a couple can sort of meld your views and your viewpoints together to make a fresh start, you know, as a couple, as you move forward together.
Okay, well, that kind of covers the past and how that might impact your financial viewpoint. What else do you need to know?
I think you need to really take some time to discuss how each of you feels about spending and saving, what money means to you. You know, some people don't think about money when they have it. They only think about it when they don't, you know, when it runs out. And other folks, though, they keep really good tabs, you know, saving as much as possible, spending only when they need to. So if one person, I think, in the couple is a spendthrift and the other is more of a tightwad, there are going to be some
technical
money.
terms.
Exactly. There are going to be some money problems down the road, maybe in the relationship. So I think you want to make sure that you identify your own financial behavior patterns and views as well as your partner's. I think that's really necessary. That's a huge step. And it works best, I think, for a couple if you have similar feelings about saving and spending. Being partners means working kind of in that harmonious way.
So once you've sat down, explored a little bit about how you both feel about money, what's your next step?
Well, I think then the next logical thing is to take a close look at where each of you currently stand financially. You know, this is where the idea, I think, of for better or worse comes into play. What assets do you both have? What debts do you both still owe? If and when you get together, these are going to be things that you're going to share, you know, fortunately or unfortunately. That's a good place to have that discussion. Now, the thing about it is when you're having that discussion, you want to try to, as best as you can, avoid the blame game.
Sure.
You know, avoid shaming your partner. But you also, I think, have to be aware if your significant other has a lot of debts, this might affect your relationship in the future. If one of you has to pay off, say, for example, a big student loan or something like that, or big credit card balances, it's going to affect affect the amount that you both have to live on, for other purposes, day over day. So you really do have to start talking about it.
I want to explore this a little bit more here. Now, I like to think that if I were in this situation, hypothetically, that I'd be very open and honest and that my partner would be very open and honest with me. But how can you make sure that you're getting the full story on how much your better half owes?
Right. I think that it pays to be observant. You just got to be paying attention. You can tell a lot about a person's financial situation from their habits. So if your fiance regularly pays with a credit card instead of using cash or a debit card, that might be a red flag. That might tell you something. The same thing's true if he or she only ever pays the minimum on their credit card balances, that kind of thing, month over month, or if they never seem to have, any money on hand. Those kinds of things could alert you that something may be wrong. But the big part of it is if you think there is a problem, you can't ignore it.
Right.
Don't just let it go by the wayside. Get to the root, of what might be worrying you by asking some questions. Again, you want to be non-judgmental. You don't necessarily want to shame or blame, but you've got to be direct. Full disclosure really is vital. It really, really is, because I think it's promoting that sense of trust that you want to have going into a relationship. You want to have a clear understanding of what you're taking on. The lack of that disclosure can lead to a lot of bitterness, a lot of mistrust, and that's going to ultimately harm you emotionally, financially, your health as a couple. So I think you really just have to be aware. If your partner does have an overspending habit, or if they have a lot of debt, or they're already in financial trouble, I say hold off on the nuptials. Maybe don't get married just yet. Maybe don't move in just yet until you can get that problem resolved. Encourage them to get some outside help if they need it. They can call us at Consumer Credit Counseling Service. We offer free, confidential budget and credit counseling advice, and we could maybe get them some help.
All right, so I've heard that it pays for couples to know each other's credit scores. I know those things are very important. How does this help you figure out where things stand before you get together?
I think sharing your credit reports, your credit scores, provides an opportunity, again, for you to have some of those open, honest discussions about how you're going to deal with debt as a couple. The credit report, the credit score are going to provide you with information about a person's financial capabilities, and their history. Your credit report documents really how you've handled your financial responsibilities over the last several years, 7 to 10 years or so. Your credit score is a number. It's a single number, and it represents how credit worthy you are from a lender standpoint. Everybody's entitled to get a free credit report every year from each of the 3 major credit bureaus. You can just go to annualcreditreport.com. You can also get a copy of your credit score on that site. The credit report is free each year or once every 12 months from all 3 bureaus, but it is going to cost you for the score. It's going to cost you about $12 to get the score. But I think it's a good idea. Now, if you're worried about, what your credit report looks like or what your credit score is going to reveal, you can always get it and look at it yourself, before you share it with your partner. But I think you do have to share that information because it's vital. It is.
If we're looking for partners based on credit scores, I'm screwed. But let's move on here. So let's move on to the next piece of this. You've sat down, you've looked at where you both stand financially. What other money management questions do you need to discuss as a couple?
Well, I think now's the time, or then would be the time, to start talking about what your personal financial goals are. I think that information ties back into the discussion on spending, because your goals are going to reflect what's important to you and what you want to do. But I think what are the goals? What kind of goals do we have as a couple? Do you want a large family? Do you want to live in a big house, out in the suburbs? Do you want to go on a world cruise every year? What are the dreams? What are the things that you're hoping to achieve? The top 3 financial goals in most couples' lives are buying a house, saving for retirement, and building up education funds, for children. So those are all big ticket items. It takes time. It takes effort, and it takes teamwork to pay for them. So couples who have mutual goals and they define them really well, they've really thought them out and they develop a budget and a plan for accomplishing them, those couples are more likely, I think, to gain some satisfaction, and they're in a better position to weather any financial setbacks that might come. So you really do have to talk about what those goals are.
All right, so what else do you need to know before you marry or move in together?
I don't know. I think you got to talk about, who's going to do what. In other words, who's going to be responsible for financial management? Who's going to, pay the bills and that kind of thing, monitor the credit and the statements and be in charge of that. And I don't really think there's any set or pat answer for how those duties should be delegated. One person might be real good at researching financial issues, or somebody else might be good at balancing the checkbook or coming up with how we're going to save. Whatever it is, I think that you have to maybe kind of set that out a little bit. Now, with that said, though, you still got to be aware both partners need to have regular input. I think that's really important into how the household finances are managed. If one of you is generally in charge of paying the bills and making other financial decisions, schedule a monthly kind of meeting night or budget night, where you can openly discuss what things are going on and where things stand financially with that other partner. You want to make sure that each person is involved.
Another question just popped into my head here. Do you think a couple can successfully live together and still maintain their own separate finances?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a definite yes. It's possible for both parties to have separate bank accounts, separate credit cards, that kind of thing. But that's only going to work if you've got excellent communication. When one person is operating kind of independently, spending outside of the budget, that can lead to trouble because there might not be enough money, for the things that for your joint obligations, things that have to be taken care of every month. So I think it can be done, but it requires that communication. In contrast, budgeting and working together can increase your savings power and your, that whole kind of thing that you have going on as a couple, purchasing power, all of that. Here's an example. If each person in the couple spends $2 a day on coffee and $6 on a sandwich during a workday, that's $16 a day. That's $80 a week. That's $300. That's over $300 a month. Now, if you work within a food budget, you could buy the same ingredients at the grocery store, make a pot of coffee, make sandwiches at home, that kind of thing. But we've got to be talking about it. That's a way that couple could save $200 a month.
Yeah.
You really have to be talking about it. So that's a couple $1,000s a year that we could then put towards those goals that we were just talking about. So I think you have to have those kinds of conversations. But can you maintain a separate sort of financial identity? Sure, if you're talking.
We've been talking a lot about conversations you need to have before you move in or before you get married. Once you're living under the same roof, do the money talks change?
Yeah, I think they do. And I think it depends on the couple and the life stage that they're in.
Sure.
Budgeting, saving, spending, credit practices, all of that require ongoing financial discussion. There's some financial issues, though, that arise at different stages and different phases kind of life. So before marrying, one of the first financial situations that many couples face is planning the wedding. How we're going to cover those costs. That really offers a couple, I think, a perfect chance to see how their significant other budgets and spends money and how they make financial decisions. It also gives them an opportunity to work together on some money-related issues. How much can we spend? Where's the money going to come from? That kind of thing. So I think that's one of the early sort of opportunities. How about that? Financing an education or career is another kind of early personal finance venture that many couples face. Having and raising children, buying a home, preparing for retirement. All of that kind of stuff requires planning. Couples who are marrying for a second time, which is, something that we find a lot, they encounter additional financial questions. How does child support fit in, or blended family? What's that going to do to our budget? So I think throughout a relationship, I guess what I'm saying is personal finance decisions change and evolve. So again, it's about open communication, compassion, respect, helping each person or each other successfully kind of navigate through those different arenas.
And now is your time to brag just a little bit. So what resources are out there to help couples learn more about personal finances?
Oh my gosh. On our website, www.cccs-inc.org, we have all kinds of free financial resources. Listeners who visit the site will find everything from financial survival tips to tools like personal calculators. There's all sorts of podcasts and e-learning courses to help them become more financially informed. Obviously, also, we're offering free confidential financial advice. They can call us 1-800-642-2227 to set up an appointment. We also provide help at our offices throughout the area and by phone. And we have answers, for couples who have questions about home ownership, how to prevent foreclosure. So again, whatever phase folks are in, we really can help. You can make a housing counseling appointment by calling 1-866-731-8486. We've got it all.
Well, Deanna, another very information-filled interview we've had here today. Do you have any final advice before we have to part?
I think I just might say whether you're just starting out as a couple or if you've been together for, decades and decades, I think the advice would be the same. Put some time and effort into learning how to communicate, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help and resources if you need it.
Speaking of reaching out, can you give me that information on how to contact CCCS one more time?
Absolutely. Our 800 number is 1-800-642-2227, and our website is www.ccs-inc.org.
Well, Deanna Booker from the Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware, thank you so much for coming by.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us this and every week for Maryland Today.